And here we go.
Yeah, so here we go. Blitz chess. Magnus Carlsen is famous for this. He's been world champion several times at Blitz, so he's a big favourite. But Daniel Dubov, he's shown today he's not to be messed with. And we see a repeat so far of their second rapid game from today. The players are heading straight down, playing the same moves. Magnus Carlsen, remember, he lost that game, but he got a good position out of the opening. So Magnus Carlsen repeating the exact same opening, but this time Daniel Dubov plays a different move, pushing his pawn in the middle. Daniel Dubov changing things up, surprising his opponent with a new move compared to what they played a bit earlier today. And it looks like Daniel Dubov, he's done his research in that break.
And it's still a very unusual move, so Magnus might have been taken by surprise.
Yes, and Magnus might have been taken by surprise, but there's no time to be surprised in these Blitz games. Even if your opponent shocks you with a move, you just have to keep reacting. You have to make sure you rely on that adrenaline even. And, OK, we have seen a trade of pawns in the centre. Black's knight now nicely centralised. Will we see Magnus Carlsen capture that knight with his bishop? Will we see him defend a pawn that's attacked on that left side? Magnus behind on the clock quite significantly at this early stage, almost a minute down this early on. The one fear for Magnus Carlsen is that in Blitz chess, you don't have time to react. And Daniel Dubov is, well, he's shown us today, he will play some surprising moves. He will shock Magnus at some point. Magnus needs to keep time in order to react to those surprises. And Magnus burning a huge amount of time on this one move right now.
And we heard Erwin talk about it, the difficulty for Anish Giri to transition from classical chess in just a few days to rapid chess. They had 20 minutes now to transition from rapid to Blitz. Is that difficult?
It is difficult. Blitz, it's all about that focus, all about the adrenaline, all about just kind of building up that rhythm to play quickly. The difference is, in rapid chess, in these 15 minutes games we've been seeing, sometimes the players, they can afford to take a time out to think for 6-7 minutes on one move if it's a really critical moment. But in Blitz chess, it's hard to know exactly when you can take that time out. And here, Magnus, he spent a minute and a half on this move this early on the game. It looks like he hasn't found that rhythm yet. He hasn't adapted, the world champion.
Yeah, it's a little bit impractical, isn't it? This isn't a critical position, so to speak. Much better to leave that time for later on.
He's frozen. I mean, he spent nearly... Look, he's talking to himself, Magnus. Magnus Carlsen is talking to himself right now. And he finally makes a move after 2 minutes. And it's just an innocent pawn move. He could have played that move instantly without thinking. But Magnus spending 2 minutes on a move, and it's not a good one. Daniel Dubov now, surprised. Yep. We see him lean back. He can take a pawn. Black can grab a pawn with his knight. I'm not sure he will, but it's there. The option's there.
Yeah, the option's there for the taking. But we do know Dubov doesn't like to grab pawns. You know, we kind of joked a little bit about it. He'd much rather sacrifice a pawn for activity. OK. So are we expecting Dubov to actually...
I think...
take that step forward.
Dubov, he could capture a pawn with his knight right now, but I would expect to see him maybe improve his rook or improve his light squared bishop for black. He just needs to make a move quickly. He needs to capitalise on the fact that Magnus Carlsen froze there for 2 minutes. Magnus frustrated with himself. If Dubov plays... OK, he does capture that pawn. Magnus brings his queen across one square. So now white's queen eyeing up the black knight and eyeing up the pawn in the middle of the board, that black pawn.
Can Dubov use some tactics to keep that knight wedged there on its square?
Yes, I think Daniel Dubov has a trick in this position. And there we go. He brings his knight to the middle. If white's queen now gets greedy and takes a black knight, the other black knight will drop itself down into the middle of the board, forking the king and the queen, a family fork, a royal fork, even winning the white queen. Magnus Carlsen, he's blundered his queen twice in the match so far. He won't do it for a third time. But now we see white win his pawn back in the middle of the board. Level material again, but Magnus Carlsen, he's down 1 minute on the clock. Those black knights look super well placed right now, super active.
And you can just see those black knights are coming forward like there's no tomorrow. So one of the knights has moved in to give a check to the king. And I think it's going to be a goodbye to the bishop pair. And wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Well, OK, I'm just had a look at the bar, and the bar just really swung in Black's favour. Wow. I'm trying to work out what is happening here.
Daniel Dubov has a winning move right now. It's not obvious, though. It's very difficult to see, especially in blitz chess with not much time. Black could actually use his bishop, drop it all the way down and capture a pawn, sacrifice a bishop. This is Daniel Dubov's style. If anyone can find it, he can. But that looks like a winning move right now.
Yeah.
Purely because it would explode the position, explode the shelter in front of White's king. And Black's knights, they've been dancing around, but they're positioned perfectly to kind of box in White's king and join the attack a bit later on. It's not an obvious move. I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Dubov goes for something a bit more simple, but maybe Magnus Carlsen, we see him raise his eyebrows. Maybe he's just spotted that. This one, I mean, Dubov, he knows his position is promising, but there's so much choice, so many options.
And it is blitz chess, not much time.
It is blitz chess, and we also, you know, we see the bar move up and down, and so therefore we can make a guess. Oh yeah, well, hang on a second. Now the time is right. We can go for it and sacrifice a piece, open lines. Dubov doesn't actually see the bar. So he has to figure it out by himself. And maybe he doesn't sense that the moment is now. But that is one beautiful move.
Yeah, it's not an easy move to play. I mean, it's such a high-pressure situation when you're facing the world champion, when you've got the black pieces. It's not an easy thing to sacrifice a piece for not immediate kind of obvious compensation.
I reckon he's going to do it. I knew it. I was like,
fantastically spotted by Daniil Dubov. He found a move that was not obvious at all.
No, and but OK, the world champion Magnus Carlsen is on the ropes.
Yeah, he's given up a piece. I mean, we did say if anyone could find it, Dubov can. He loves to sacrifice. It's his first instinct, essentially. And the whole idea, if White plays pawn takes bishop right now, Black will actually capture White's light squared bishop and then bring the black queen into the middle of the board, giving check to the white king. And this would actually be devastating. Daniil Dubov, he found that move. He spent time at the right moment. Daniil Dubov, he spent a minute and a half there on a critical moment. He just felt his instincts told him there was a win. Magnus Carlsen wasted 2 minutes earlier on a useless move. So I mean, Dubov's using his time better.
But this is a tightrope because, well, Dubov has to capture that bishop and he has found it.
Wow.
Because anything else would have lost him the game. So, yeah, now...
Yeah, now Magnus Carlsen decided there was no time to capture that black knight. He captured the one in the middle of the board. Now Black's queen drops herself into the centre as well, giving check to the white king. Black now, anytime he wants, can play knight takes rook in the corner, on that left-hand corner. Black's knight can capture that rook, but Dubov's biding his time. White's king is under attack. White has to decide. A huge decision for Magnus Carlsen. Do you just block that check with a pawn? Do you move your king up one square? Do you trade queens? Either way, it looks like Dubov is going to snap off that white rook in the corner. Black's going to be up on material. Black will have an extra rook for a bishop. But the problem is, the danger is for Dubov that the black knight will be trapped in the corner. It might take a while to relocate later on. So still in the balance, despite it looking good for Dubov.
And Magnus Carlsen has not reacted physically to this, moving his king here.
Yep, moving the king. He still senses there's a chance. Remember, yeah, as Jovanka said, the players, they don't know the evaluation. Magnus, he's looking for the positives in the position. He can't take 30 seconds just beating himself up for missing this idea. He needs to just hope for the best, play for tricks. There's still a chance Black's knight will be offside next move.
Daniil Dubov thinking now, going down to 2 minutes. Daniil Dubov.
Yeah, this is not practical by Daniil Dubov.
And he
has to take the knight. That was the move. And you can see Magnus moves the bishop to attack that knight. But not just that. The bishop is also having some discovered potential against the black right side of the board, that pawn in front of the king.
And the bar is reacting here, David.
Yep, it may be not the most accurate move by Daniil Dubov, but probably the most human move, so we can't fault him too much for that one. Black's brought his rook across to the centre, pinning White's knight. White's knight now cannot move because the queen is behind it. Black's rook would take the white queen, but maybe Daniil Dubov should have used the other rook, because now Black's other rook, the one next to the black king, is actually trapped. It's getting in the way of things a bit, and Magnus Carlsen not caring about that black knight in the corner, just going for the attack. Magnus knows it's his best chance now to counter-attack against the black king, which has no defenders around it.
Exactly, and with the clocks ticking down, what really matters is to have the initiative and to have the attack, because it's very, very difficult to defend. And I really like Magnus's last move, lining up that rook on an open line, and look how it points towards that pawn.
Yeah, the pawn in front of the black king there, not feeling comfortable at all, eyed up by the white rook, also potentially eyed up by the white bishop. It's looking difficult for now for Daniil Dubov. Suddenly, He's on the back foot. He's material up, but remember, he prefers to be material down, but with the attack. This time, roles have reversed. Magnus Carlsen is the one behind on points, but with a potential attack. And Daniel Dubov, he attacks the White Knight. The White Knight cannot move. It's still pinned.
Yeah. And there's only one move now to escape from that pin. And Magnus has found it. He has moved the queen. Look at the rook and the queen. They are lined up on that line. And now White is threatening checkmate. Now, there is absolutely no chance that Dubov will actually miss this checkmate. So we are expecting him to defend.
There's only one move for Black to survive now, and it's not obvious. Dubov will hate to play this move. OK, he has found it. Black moving the pawn in front of his king. But look how airy, look how loose the Black king's position feels. It's so open right now, Black's king. Magnus Carlsen, he needs to find a way to kind of snake the White queen in to attack the Black king.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the move that comes to my mind. Just step the queen one square diagonally, and then we can start threatening checks, because the game is just too wild.
I mean, it's crazy right now. Magnus Carlsen, I think he can force a draw by bringing his queen up, trying to threaten to check the Black king.
He's played it.
He's gone for it. Now Black should play probably rook takes knight, and if White checks with the White queen, it's only checks. White's only attacking with one piece, but Black has to get rid of the knight before the knight joins the attack. Then Daniel Dubov will be safe, but Magnus Carlsen can maybe force a draw. Daniel Dubov, his clock is ticking under 30 seconds now. He has to make sure he can't allow a mating attack against the Black king. He has to capture that knight now with a pawn or with the rook to survive.
He has to adapt from the mind frame that maybe he was winning before. Oh,
wow.
David.
A huge blunder, I think.
Absolutely. He did not adjust. He thought he was still winning, and so he rejected the draw. And, oh, my God. So a huge blunder. So, David, take us through those moves.
Yep, so Daniel Dubov, he didn't allow that draw. He didn't allow the perpetual check. He wanted to win. But now White's knight has suddenly got up and won one of Black's rooks. And suddenly Black's position is just falling apart. Black's knight as well. It was so good, but it's offside. It's not playing a part in this game. The computer evaluation we see shoots up for White, finally catching up with the play. Black's king is too open. White's got an attack, temporarily material ahead as well. Suddenly Magnus Carlsen is turning on the fire. I mean, he's just worked his way through these complications, through this maze perfectly well. White has emerged with an extra knight. That knight will decide the game.
Yeah.
And we see the queen gives check, Black's king hiding away in the corner, but essentially White's attacking now with an extra piece. He's got a knight, Black's got a couple of pawns, but those pawns are irrelevant.
And the bar saying 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Checkmate is coming.
White. And you can just see.
And it's finished.
Yeah.
Magnus Carlsen getting a win here.
Yeah, White giving check, about to win the Black rook, about to give checkmate, and Daniel Dubov, he just self-destructed. He panicked and blundered. Magnus Carlsen taking it home. Spectacular at the end.